Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of oil and natural gas. Some of my favorite sectors. Looks like we got a split kind of look here where we've got oil and natural gas going higher, but some of the companies themselves heading a little bit lower. So let's find out what's going on. Let's look at the charts. I'll give you my financial opinion. It's just my opinion. Please don't use it as advice. Let's dive in here and see what's going on. So we've got West Texas oil. This is a daily chart. It broke to the upside, finished quite strong. It looks absolutely excellent. It's at $86.40. And we broke through this resistance area. Will this continue higher? You know what? I can't tell you, but I can tell you this. It looks awfully good, and it's finished quite strong. So I am favoring the buyers until the sellers come in and tell me I shouldn't. But it looks really good to go up. Lots of buying pressure. And where I drew this candlestick in here, just guessing that we're going to be contained in this for a little bit and consolidate for a little bit. It doesn't mean we'll reach the top of this at any time, but we could probably come back and forth and then break out of it. But that's natural gas and what that looks like to me. Looking at the companies, this is XOP, an ETF. We've broken through this massive pattern. The pattern here is this big descending line here, this resistance line. We are breaking out of it. We're in the process of breaking out of this, and we're entering and encountering sellers. There's some sellers from back here as well, and we're hitting sellers. We're hitting some selling pressure. SM Energy, it is also hitting some selling pressure. This is a bearish piercing pattern. We went to take a run at it, and sellers came in and sold it back off. So we're hitting a little bit of selling pressure in this 37 range. What I like to do is to kind of step back out, and it looks like we've got some other selling. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line in here across. We've got a lot of buying and selling that occurred in history here, all through this range of $30.60 all the way up to about $42. And it's all this buying and selling in here that happened in the 2017 range and whatnot. So we have to work our way through these sticking points to get above it. So what we're doing is we're hitting a lot of selling pressure, even though we've got an up day in oil. It looks like there's a lot of pressure here in Centennial Resource Development as well. We're hitting a little bit of selling pressure. If you look at the daily candlesticks, this is a bearish engulfing, which means we could potentially head lower for a little bit. I think what I see by looking at some of these companies is that the companies are getting a little bit tired. They've had big moves up. They want to rest a little bit before moving higher, but the price of oil continues to go up. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. Some of them are just looking a little bit tired, but every time I say that, it seems like we get a launch higher. So hopefully I'll keep saying that and we get launch higher. It launches higher. Crude Energy launched higher, got a little bit of a wick at the tops. So it was opened here, came up, and then came back down. The momentum's coming back down a little bit. Up 6.74% for Crude Energy. So good day today. They must have released something. Callon Petroleum, again, we're getting this bearish piercing pattern, which means we could head lower. This is a bearish piercing that headed lower here. And then we got another one, so it could come back for another couple days or something like that. Athabasca Oil up 1.89%. This is a black candlestick. If you look at it from different candlestick charts, I think we're going to pause a little bit and rest on top of this support line. That support line is a major break. So we broke it, and we're trying to stay above it. There's a lot of sellers over here to the left, all through here and here and here. So we're trying to break back through all that garbage. Recaf getting sold off a little bit today, down 3.4%. For the recaf. If it can load here. Here we go. It doesn't look too bad. Again, what I'm seeing here is I'm going to draw a line across. And if I take a sweep along this line, There's lots of sellers in here. And what we did is we broke through this area. We started to run and we ran into selling pressure and sold back down. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to create, and what these usually create are flag patterns. So it's going to create a flag pattern where we go sideways and then we break it to the upside again. So that's what I'm seeing and what kind of my guess is, hopefully. Northern oil and gas, getting a little bit of selling pressure. What you want to look for in this is a contraction in the candlestick size. Are we contracting up a little bit? We could contract up, break down a little bit. We'll come down and rest, and then eventually head higher. Hopefully, but that's what it's looking like. It looks like we could potentially break to the downside. It looks like the equities are forecasting that oil may pull back here in the short term. That's kind of what I'm reading. And you could see that with CPG kind of topping out. It looks like it's topping out here. The candlesticks of the green candlesticks are getting smaller in size, the opening and closing price. And you can start to see the opening and closing price of the selling candlesticks are getting larger. So what's happening is we're coming into selling pressure. The buyers are starting to equal the sellers, and the sellers are starting to weigh on the stock to go a little bit lower. And that's what these candlesticks are telling us. Grand Tier Energy looks like it slipped through the cracks, 3.5% up day to day. So that still looks okay. I don't see a ton of selling pressure yet. Tellurian, the sellers are there. You can see it in this day here and this day here. Bearish engulfing, bearish engulfing. They were here today, more selling pressure. Could this go lower? It could. What I'm looking at here is kind of the pattern where you come in, you come down, you fight your way up, and we're starting to break to the downside here today. So we could head lower in the short term. And that could be a little bit lower with this pattern break to the downside. Pedevco, this thing's kind of trading on its own. We had an up day today. It looks like it opened up and closed up. It was up 4.3% because it gapped up so much. But the momentum is coming down a little bit. We are at the bottom portion of its pattern. We're right kind of at the tip here. And hopefully we can break to the upside and get a nice good run out of it. Will this happen if oil pulls back? What I hope happens is we go right to the tip and we delay the move a little bit if we get a sell-off in oil. This is Oasis Petroleum. Again, this to me looks like we're at a topping pattern. I would have sold it today if I was a trader. We're starting to see more bearish engulfing patterns starting to show up in this stock. And what they do is they start showing themselves before the stock moves lower. So the sellers start to win. They start pushing this thing down and start selling out. So I think we could potentially head lower. Comstock Resources, bearish engulfing, it's showing up in that as well. Sandridge is showing up some selling pressure today with a bearish engulfing pattern, which means we're going to head lower. What you're going to want to look and watch for is this, and we kind of broke that to the downside. So I think the sellers are going to probably show up. Coming in here, a little bit of selling pressure today in Ring Energy. Looking at Surge Energy, this thing's had a monster run, guys. If it were me, I would still be holding on, but I'd be looking. If you're a trader, guys, and I'm not a trader, but if you're trading this, it broke through here, you're probably going to get a return move at some point down here, back to do a back test. But that has been on fire. It's had a massive move. Tamarack Valley Energy, it's still holding strong. A little cross today. Honestly, I think we could potentially pull back eventually if oil, if the other portion or other parts of the sector are pushing back, that could potentially pull back as well. OIH, again, we're above. We've broken above the pattern. We have a bearish piercing pattern, which I think we're going to head a little bit lower. I think we're going to have time to cool off. And all the sectors are kind of looking like that. The companies in the sector, I should say. Tetra Technologies, we're starting to see this thing kind of come to a point. We'll see which way it breaks. Rig getting a little bit of selling pressure today. That doesn't look too bad, though. PUMP, we've broken to the upside. Again, we're getting a little bit of selling pressure. It doesn't look horrible, though. Doesn't look as bad as some of the exploration companies. A little bit of selling pressure in EXTN. Valeris is holding on, but again, I think we're going to hit some selling pressure here. We're quite extended on some of the, not really extended, but I'm starting to see selling pressure in the companies. A little bit of selling pressure in MRM, even though this big long-term picture chart in MMA offshore looks absolutely fantastic. I would be a buyer down here irrespective. I would be cost averaging in for sure. Tidewater's looking really good from a monthly perspective. The dailies, I mean, it was up today. It's kind of bucking the trend, but we're right at the top of this pattern trying to break out, probably hitting some resistance. NEX, this looks like we're going to head lower. This is a bearish engulfing. I would probably take my profits if you're a short-term trader, and then this is probably going to head lower and do a retest. It's had a monster run. CHX, Champion X Corporation, getting a little bit of selling pressure there. Usually when they offset like this, there's some sellers up there that want to try to drive it lower. Cactus Incorporated, WHD, a little bit of selling pressure, wick at the top. We're coming back, trying to break through this, so a little bit of selling pressure. OII, again, selling pressure, bearish, piercing. We could head a little bit lower on the short term. Noble's holding on. It looks okay. Everything looks good here. Not much selling pressure. And then Helix Energy Solutions, getting a little bit of selling pressure, bearish engulfing, bearish piercing. We could head a little bit lower before going higher. So this sector, if you look at the companies themselves, it looks like they're wanting to turn and head lower. But oil and natural gas, they look like they want to go higher, especially oil. Oil looks like it's looking very good. What would I do? I would do nothing. I'm not going to do anything in this sector. I'm just going to hold on. I'm going to add if we pull back and get more weakness. The name of the game here is to know that we're in undervalued assets and that the short term, markets move in waves. They move in waves up. They get a consolidation period where they pull back. They move up again. They consolidate. They pull back. And it just cycles over and over. Nothing goes straight up. They're going to try to shake you off this bull market in these companies, just the markets do in general. And if you're a new investor, you have to kind of just focus on buy points and holding on because the market conditions are good, the valuations are good. And I know it seems like, we're up there, but we're seeing reversal patterns. So we'll see how big this reversal is, if it's a couple days, and it may only be a couple days before we move on higher. And that's what's difficult about the short term is a lot of people, they try to use all these different tactics and they try to put on, these price targets based off of Fibonacci retracements and all this stuff. And the easiest way to do it is get the big picture right. If you got the big picture right, hold on to this big bull because this bull is going to run at some point. And it's going to run big. The patterns are breaking to the upside. So I wouldn't be afraid if you hear me say something on the lines like we could potentially pull back in the short term. I would look at it as buying opportunities. I would not look at it as selling opportunities. I wouldn't get afraid. The thesis of the channel, I think, is solid. Expansion phase of real estate with housing starts and the volume of loans against it. Then you've got, that's the market conditions. Then you have the ratios that are still cheap and improving. Everything takes time to play out. So don't chase. Let these things come back to you. If they come back to you, that's the time you add in. We should be buying when they're down. Do not chase price. If you guys like this analysis, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.